Are you rebooting?
It's on there now.
We're gonna check to see if there's some audio here. If there isn't, then I'm sorry. You're gonna have to listen elsewhere. Too bad there was no one here to hear that. That was a pretty song.
That was fantastic, buddy.
I think it might have been back by then.
As soon as somebody's in the room, we'll find out if we've got
Tim High's in the room.
audio.
He might not be showing up there, but I know he's watching. I said we're fixing it. Is it good? And he said, good as in quality or good as in fixed?
Real nice.
So
we already know that it's not going to be good as in quality, but good as in my butt.
can you hear us?
If you are out there in the multiverse, can you hear us?
Someone's there. Hey, can you hear us?
Is there audio?
Tim High says fixed the sound.
He said fixed or
Yes.
fixed?
Okay.
Fixed.
Shannon says yes.
Hi everybody.
Hi again.
Hi, thanks.
We were with you. You just didn't know it.
You missed my Broadway-like rendition of Is There Sound Yet?
Is this whiskey sweet?
That's what I mean. Like, figure out what you're going to do and do it. Len Fiddick. You guys ready?
I guess so.
Get all your shakes out. Going live in
Me.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, well, this is not how that works at all. We'll try it again. In 5, 4, 3, 2.
What's going on, everyone? It's Jay from the Wednesday Night Whiskey Committee, here with another episode. Before we get started, let's introduce the committee.
Episode.
Yeah, I've got just several different catchphrases you might have caught on by PPPREON.com. And you can check
it podcast.
What are we doing?
We're having a podcast.
Making podcast. Like I said, my name is Jay. With me this evening is co-host and co-founder, the handsome man, the Han Soloist of soloists, a very fine and cultured linguist. He helped with the tasting video earlier. Michael J. Cavino.
Bonsoir.
And across from me, the flannel one with the beard. One of the most intelligent men I know.
He doesn't know many people.
That's true, I don't. The Red Warlock, John J. Feathers.
Guten Abend.
Wow, I feel like so left out right now. I'm Empanada Jones and Ipa. Andale Ipa.
We're going to listen to the girl from Ipanema tonight.
Spoiler alert, that's on my console.
Oh. Let's present arms. This week I am presenting the Thesis BR9. And as you can see,
it's badass.
It is. It's bad and clear.
As you can see, it's badass. I am presenting, as usual, you probably guessed it, the Browning High Power Mark III. And as you can see,
very clear.
Very clear.
And I am presenting the Dan Wesson 44. And as you all can see, by such a spin.
Nice spin, Mike.
We're clear.
That is a nice firearm, if I do say so myself.
I love it very much.
What are you cluttering up the table with there?
I'm moving stuff. I want to get decluttered.
You're marching off to Bastille Day, aren't you, there?
Oh, yeah. Which, by the way, spoilers. If you can find some of this Bastille, go ahead.
It's good.
It's delicious.
Also, spoiler alert, if you can find some of the Johnny Walker White Walker edition.
No.
Don't.
It's actually not that bad. It's just, it's not that, it's nothing.
What's it cost?
$35.
Too much.
Too much for that.
Too much.
Yeah.
$20 maybe. For the novelty, I'd buy it for $20.
$20 for the novelty. Or you could spend $20 on that and
actually get a good whiskey.
For $35 you could buy season 1 of Game of Thrones and definitely enjoy yourself.
Right. We're digressing.
Sure we are.
All right.
Where are we? Patreon?
I don't know where we are.
I think
We're
we're
in Mikey's
shitting
house.
on everything.
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Soon.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. Just a few quick notes this week. I'm still trying to set up everything with Wiggle. Communications have kind of like slowed down a little bit. I'm going to send them a little nudge here, like, "Hey, so when are we coming out next week?" So I got that going on. A few of you have sent me some emails regarding the blackened whiskey. I do have an update. That will be our feature whiskey on our next podcast. Whisketeer Jeremy Nixon. Wrong.
Jeremy Nelson. Good God.
I mean,
This ain't no bluegrass
that
festival.
man can pick a banjo, but I don't know if he can pick the whiskey that
That's
we're having
right.
next week.
That's right.
Jeremy Nixon went above and beyond and found us a bottle of Blackened, and we're going to thank you, Jeremy. We are going to feature that on our next week's show. Both he and Mario Ciccarella have given me the actual master distiller of Blackened has passed away.
Yeah. I was going to bring
And
it up.
I do want to touch on that, but I think I'm going to save it for next week.
All right.
Some fun stuff, I guess. I got our statistic report from YouTube for the past month, and we've had 1,100, basically just shy of 1,200 minutes watched this month. That's almost 20 full hours of YouTube viewers. So we really, really appreciate that.
We do.
Something fun. If those of you who want to check in on the Firefly binge watching episode, that's going to happen this Sunday at Monsieur Ryan Weaver's house, whether he knows it or not. And for anyone who wants to join us, please message us and let us know. We would love to have you there. I think that's all I have really, aside from that. We have a Facebook, we have the Instagram, we have the Twitter, we have a Redbubble, which if you want to get some fine swag, some fresh ass threads, if you want to be hip like us and get these awesome phone cases, you can get some t-shirts, whatever you want. It's there, stickers, you name it. You want a wall clock? You've got it. We have those.
You think we could get FN to manufacture some Wednesday night whiskey high powers?
I think we should.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, we could. FN, I know you're listening because that's all you have better to do.
Oh yeah,
listen to our show. Make us some custom Wednesday night whiskey high powers. It'd be great.
Yeah. I'd get one.
Yeah. So they're always posting promo codes for discounts. So please keep watch for that. If you're looking for some swag, we have it. We have a Patreon account which is growing and growing. No new Patreon members this week, however.
How do you spell that, Jay?
How do we spell that? That's funny you should say. I got that. It is www.patreon.com, and you can check us out and give us your money. We appreciate it.
We love your money.
We do love your money more than we love ourselves.
Right.
Well,
didn't take much, honestly.
Yeah, really. When it comes down to it, we're starting to, we're getting there. We have. Our original goal was to get about $20 an episode. We're about halfway there. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
We're going to be getting some more promo things to give away, business cards, hopefully a couple posters to liven up the joint. But you never know. So it doesn't happen without your donation. And as soon as we have whiskey in these glasses, we will toast all of our patron members, whoever you are. We love you.
I'm anxious to get to that point tonight.
Yeah, we have a little special guest in the room with us this evening. And we also have a coffee site if you're not into the reoccurring donation thing. That is ko-fi.com. It's you send us a cup of coffee. It's the equivalent of about $3 or $4. It's kind of cool. And also, if you want to cut out the middleman altogether and just want to give us your money directly, which, hey, that's a preferred method, but hey, who's counting? You can hit up our PayPal account, send us a message, and we will give you the details to do so. With that, I think we are ready to move on to our featured whiskey of the evening, which this was brought to our attention originally, I think, by Mario. He sent us the message on Facebook, and he's like, guys, I want you to try this.
Right.
Let me know what you think. It's taken us a while, Mario. Sorry, things move slowly in the real world. But we do have it in the room this evening, and we are excited about it. So without any further ado, let's have Jason give us the shakedown streak.
Oh, I don't know if I can do that. This evening's whiskey is a specialty whiskey from Glenfiddich. It is Fire and Cane. There's a little bit of a quick history on Glenfiddich itself. The Glenfiddich Distillery was founded in 1886 by William Grant in Dufftown, Scotland, in the Glen of the River Fiddick. The Glenfiddich single malt whiskey first ran from the stills. I found this awesome. On Christmas.
Run to the stills.
On Christmas Day, 1887. In the 1920s, with Prohibition enforced in the United States, Glenfiddich was one of a very small number of distilleries to increase production. This put them in a very strong position to meet the sudden rise in demand for fine aged whiskeys that came with the repeal. So the Prohibition was actually very good for Glenfiddich. In the 1950s, the Grant family built up an on-site infrastructure that included coppersmiths to maintain the copper stills and a dedicated cooperage that is now one of the very few remaining in the distilleries. In 1956, the Grants brand launched the now iconic triangular bottle designed by Hans Schläger. And I gotta say that when I was a young lad, the Glenfiddich triangular bottle and the Grants bottle, which is the same, was always one of my favorites for ergonomic purposes. It found my lips that way quite a few times. Following difficult times in the 1960s and 1970s, many small independent distillers were brought up or went out of business. In order to survive, W. Grant & Sons expanded their production of the drink and introduced advertising campaigns in a visitor center. In this period, they also took the decision to begin marketing single malt as a premium brand in its own right, effectively creating the modern single malt whiskey category. So we all owe those folks quite a bit. Later, Grant & Sons was one of the first to package its bottles in tubes and gift tins, as well as did that one come in a tin? Glenfiddich always comes in a tin.
It did not. They're not in tins.
They are not in tins. As well as recognizing the importance of the duty-free market for spirits, this marketing strategy was highly successful, and Glenfiddich has now become one of the world's best-selling single malts. It is sold in 180 countries and accounts for about 35% of all single malt sales. Glenfiddich is currently managed by the fifth generation of William Grant descendants. In September 2014, William Grant & Sons agreed to acquire Drambuie, which is an awesome liqueur, for an undisclosed price rumored to be in the region of £100 million. Now, specifically on Fire and Cane, there's not a whole lot. It comes with a nice little booklet that doesn't say anything. Fire and Cane is an experimental single malt whiskey. It is a bold fusion of smoky and sweet notes by marrying peated whiskey and malts matured in bourbon barrels and then finishing it in Latin rum casks. They have created an exquisite whiskey with campfire smokiness and toffee sweetness. So without further ado, I'd really like to get on to tasting the cane.
Yeah, let's crack
the Fire and the Cane. Brought to you by James Taylor and Sons.
Let's see what we got here.
No tin. That's interesting. It is an experimental.
Ooh. Mikey?
Let me whiff that cork. Ooh. Smoky and toffee sweet. I get it already off the cork. Nice amber color.
Yeah, way better than that tasting.
The cork definitely has a stronger nose than the whiskey.
I love this bottle, by the way.
Oh, I know that
it's very ergonomic.
They have some of the greatest bottles. Thank you, Hans Schläger.
Well, gents,
I am.
Before we get into that too far, let's raise it up to our Patreon members.
That's right.
We've got Scotty Knoll.
We have him.
We have Rick Wirtz.
We have him.
We have Ryan Weaver.
We have him.
We have Mario Ciccarello.
We have him.
We have Miss Shannon Hoffman.
We have her.
And did I miss anybody?
That's it so far.
That's it so far.
This one's for you and all.
And to our future Patreon.
Yes, to our future Patreon who are traveling backwards in time to watch this again.
That's right.
So cheers. Well, we're gonna sniff it first, or we're gonna
sniff it first.
Yeah, let's sniff it.
I already sniffed it.
I didn't sniff it yet.
Sniff it, Jay.
I'm a cork sniffer.
Put it to your nose.
I'm sniffing.
The more I sniff, the more I definitely can smell smokiness and toffiness.
And it's not overbearing.
I don't know if you saw me perk up there, because I've tried it already. I actually really like this.
It's not like there's the typical smokiness. Like, as a little side note,
I know, right?
Al bought a smoky peaty pack. Basically, it was 4 samples of different levels of
Peatiness.
of smoky peatiness. And even like on the weakest level, which I went, whoa, like campfire.
Yeah.
This is not even. I really have to like cover up and.
Well, it's definitely not an island malt.
There's no peat. You don't get the peat.
You don't get the peat.
Yeah.
There's smoke. I get smoke.
I get smoke.
And it's spicy. It's
is
got a very
spicy.
spicy finish, but I really like this.
Jay doesn't. Jay doesn't like it at all.
I don't want to say that I don't like
It
it.
doesn't taste like a J whiskey at all.
It doesn't.
No, I don't want to say that I don't like it. I do, because the smoke isn't overbearing.
Yeah.
It's for me. It's a subtle smoke.
Yeah.
But this isn't like booting the door in and the firefighters are throwing you out the window like 4
Well,
alarms.
it's not Highland Park.
Yeah, it's not.
But no, I mean, is it, am I going to drink this all the time? No. But as far as the smokiness goes, I don't mind it.
Yeah. I mean, I prefer a real peatier,
Yeah,
but this is surprisingly good to me.
I'm honestly shocked
Yeah,
at how
me
much
too.
I like it, because
Me
I
too.
was, when you give me that experimental,
Yeah.
you
well,
label it as such, I'm gonna have reservations.
They had me wondering when I heard a lot of spiciness.
Yeah.
And you know what? It is spicy,
Sure.
but it's not bad spicy.
No.
It's actually pretty good spicy.
Yeah, like I said, as far as and I'm usually hard on the whole smokiness and peatiness of those type of
He
whiskeys.
said hard
Hard
on.
on, I heard it.
Thanks. Did you catch that?
Mhm.
All up in your face. Ugh. It's like a baby's arm.
Holding an apple.
It's not bad. I much prefer the regular Glenfiddich. But
No.
aw.
No.
Much prefer the original, but this isn't bad, not at all.
Well, I mean, you're a space side man,
You really are.
and
There's no problem with that whatsoever.
absolutely not.
Unless you're that
Absolutely.
one lady in that forum.
Ow! It's okay. Let me back up. I belong to a Scotch forum on Facebook, and I was reading they had a 25-year Macallan and a 25-year Highland Park.
Mhm.
And they said, for the money, which one do you pick? And it was straight up and down the board, Macallan, Highland Park, Macallan. They would get all listing their reasons. And this one pretentious, I'm just going to call her a bitch because I don't feel that she could be anything but that. She's like, oh, don't get the Macallan. It's so pedestrian and predictable. And I went, oh, God. Because we get our nose up any higher.
When you're talking about a Scotch, though, having a known quantity is not a bad thing,
Right,
especially when you're spending a lot of money on it. You want to know what you're getting.
Yeah.
right. But just to be that pompous and
Yeah.
that, like, it's so pedestrian. Do I need to remind you, lady, that you're pedestrian?
I don't.
Yeah, so I don't know. That kind of pissed me off a few weeks ago. And yeah, let's get our pinkies in there, and after this, Jason, let's go to the theater and have a highball.
Mhm. She's probably mixing it anyways.
Yeah.
She's got Evans Williams under the tank.
Yeah.
So what do you think, boy?
I'm ready to rate it.
We ready?
I got my numbers.
I'm still thinking.
Chew it over.
I'm gonna chew. Go ahead.
While Jason's chewing, I'm going to do a shameless self-plug here. We're not sponsored by Voss, but, we could be. Hey, Voss, check it out.
Boss is
We're
boss.
drinking your water. We use it exclusively to, I'm going to drip a little bit in here.
It is my favorite water.
That's
Oh.
probably too much.
You just made a mixed drink, buddy.
Wow.
It might make it better. For me, anyway.
Yeah. It's usually better to put a little on the cap.
Nope, still tastes the same.
I'm good for now. I like it how it is. Let me know if it opens it up.
That's what I just want to see.
Yeah.
I honestly can't tell that big of a difference.
You opened it up and it ran out the door.
That's fine. I'll go ahead and start because I'm pretty sure I have my number where I'm at. And like I said before, this is on a like I feel like we should almost have another scale level for experimental
It smooths it just a little bit.
scotches.
I know. Are we rating this on the experimental
Yeah.
Scotch score?
I mean, if we're gonna do that, I would rate it higher. But if I guess we're just gonna keep it in a standard Scotch score. And being that I don't like a smoky kind of Scotch, aside from our homie Lagavulin, I still like it. I'm gonna give it a 78.
Can I ask what the price was?
50.
Okay, so that
tempers
affects it.
things.
Yeah, that affects it a little bit because I know what you can get for $50. What's out there now? I will say,
Because for 10 more bucks, you can get a Lagavulin 8.
Yeah.
so I like it. I like it a lot. When it comes to the recommendations, spoiler alert, it's going to get one from me. A star. It's going to get one from me. That being said, number-wise, I'm rating this against other scotches.
You have to.
So that's tough for me because is it better than most bourbons I've had? Yes.
Mhm.
Is
I
it better
agree wholeheartedly with that.
Is it better than most scotches I've had? That's a no. What did I give Lafroig? Just the regular Lafroig because the triple woods.
We haven't had Lafroig.
I thought we did.
No, we had it in the sample video. We did a tasting video with it, and we also had it in like the blind taste test video. But we haven't actually featured Lafroig on our
We
show.
need to rectify that.
Is that true?
So that's a real thing. That's true. Jay knows.
That's impossible.
Nope, it's impossible. No,
I want to go to the judge. Judges.
we've not had we have not had Lafroig, and also we have not had Macallan officially yet either.
Well, that being said, I would still probably give this. It's a passing grade. I'd give it 77.
Okay.
Jason.
I'm gonna go with my gut. I'm gonna go to 79.
What are our numbers there, bud?
We got 78, 79,
Because I'm right with
77.
I'm right. I bet you it's gonna be 78.
Sounds right.
Um,
Sounds right to me.
I'm right with Mikey because of the fact that we have to rate it on the Scotch scale. I like it quite a bit, but in comparison to other Scotches,
Right.
in comparison to other Scotches that can be had in the same price range,
If it was $10 cheaper, even, it would be probably 10 points higher for me.
yeah,
I'd have
it'd
been
be
happier
86
with
for
even
me.
with a $45
Yeah,
price point.
Yeah.
But I don't think $50 is bad for that. But I, for like I said, like an extra 10, you could have a Lagavulin 8 year. So
yeah. It's pretty good, but it's
It's-
not a Lagavulin.
yeah, it either needs to do one of two things. It needs to be a little better, or it needs to be a little cheaper.
Yeah. I don't
to
think
give it that push outside of
I don't
where
I
it's
don't
stuck
know.
between great rocks and hard places.
Yeah, I don't know for what it is, how much better it's going to get. For what they're shooting for, I think they hit their mark.
Yeah.
I think the only way to go is cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Especially, like you said, with the experimental. What else can you do?
Right. I mean, I think they hit their mark. If they're looking for smokiness and toffee sweetness with some spiciness, like
Yeah.
They got
it. There it is.
It's not wrong.
No, right.
Jason Stark,
Absolutely.
absolute Stark. Yeah. So the average comes in at 78 out of 100. We all give it 3 stars, and I'm going to say that we absolutely recommend it.
Yeah.
And again, keep in mind, it is for the price point. We feel that it should be a little cheaper, and we would probably have rated it higher if it was a little cheaper. But it's not bad. Give it a shot.
I got to read to you, by the way, too, the way that Glenfiddich described the nose and taste of it. They often get pretty flowery with their writing. The nose is billowing soft peat notes like distant smoke on the wind. I didn't know they were going to write a fucking haiku. Rich, sweet toffee with zesty, fresh fruit notes and spiciness.
This is still the nose?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you getting that?
No.
Okay. The taste is like a Highland peat campfire with oak notes and toffee.
See, I don't
I don't get a
taste
lot of peat. I don't get a lot of peat. I get smoke. I get
Yeah.
smoke. Sharp green fruit, sweet baked apple, and soft smoke is the taste. I mean, I'm there with them. I don't get a lot of peat.
They could say something about like spice, and I would definitely be on board with that.
Right.
Like
Yeah. They don't mention enough on this. I definitely get spice. They don't
Right.
mention enough spice. I mean, it's not Fireball.
No.
No, and that's what initially when Mario sent that link to us on the Facebook page. That's what I was worried about. I'm like, God, why do we have another company, a Scotch company,
Yeah.
making Fireball?
Well, you look
It's
at the
not-
bottle and you expect
yeah, and he was like, no, not
Well,
at
that's
all.
not what
it.
it
Has
is.
Mario tried it?
I believe he tried
I
it. Mario,
thought
if you're listening,
You better be listening.
let us know if you have tried the Fire and Cake.
Please, yeah.
Because we're interested. You recommended it to us, and we want.
And he has good taste.
We want your
Yeah.
thoughts, so hit us up.
I want Brian Fresh to try this too. So, Brian, when you're out at the liquor store next time, pick up a bottle because I want
Right.
to hear what you think.
I definitely recommend. I don't always do this, but a little splash of water smooths out the spiciness a little bit and opens it up. I recommend.
But it wasn't even over. And like I said, I don't like a big spice.
Yeah.
But it's
Right.
even by just straight, it's fine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Speaking of spice, I had a scorpion pepper
Oh.
this weekend. You
Okay.
heard of these?
Yes.
We made chili, and we used scorpion pepper in the chili. It was very intense.
Did
The fumes were like,
you gas yourself?
it was almost like,
Yeah.
it was almost like gas, yeah. But it was good. The flavor was really good.
See, I can't do capsaicin, so I'm fine with like rooty hot, like wasabi, horseradish. Doesn't matter. Shit can burn a hole in the floor. I can eat it. Doesn't matter. Capsaicin, I must have some kind of physical problem with that. So I think I would stay well away.
I'm not big into the burn for the sake of burning,
Right.
but this had a really nice flavor. in
Yeah.
The burn, so.
That's cool.
Cool, guys. Well, it is, if you are watching live on YouTube, then it is the day of elections
It is.
in the United States. So if you're listening to this overseas, we had a pretty big election here in America. And if you're listening to this on Wednesday, when it will be published, then
You know what happened.
all the results from today's polls. But even still, I wanted to have a little bit of a discussion between the three of us because this is America and this is why we do this. I mean, it started kind of with our first few episodes where we would have some pretty in-depth discussions about things that we are on either side of the fence of. And I know, Jason, you have some views on this, and I just kind of wanted to discuss pretty briefly, but still, being that today's election day, just what's going on out there.
Start us off.
Well, I was very impressed with the turnout whenever I went today to cast my ballot. I went probably around lunchtime, so I don't know if people were taking their lunches to go vote. But
I think that happens a lot.
when I was there, the guy that was taking the numbers said that this was actually a slow time for them. So it must have been even busier earlier in the day, and they expected even busier after work lets out. But they said that this was one of the biggest turnouts they've seen, and hopefully that's the trend throughout America. Because in my opinion, when it comes to voting, you have to have your voice heard to be able to complain. Now, I know that you feel different than me.
All right.
So that's why I wanted to kind of bring this up, because I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay. Well, for me, it's not just about the process. It's about the entire ideology underpinning it. And, I was called to task on social media by, some people about a very good friend of ours had posted some kind of meme or whatever, basically saying like, I don't want to hear you complaining if you don't vote, or something to that effect. And,
Sure.
I just made the statement that like I wanted to discuss it more like in person with that particular
and it ended
person.
up being a thread discussion. I saw that.
And then, I did not want that to happen.
Right.
and I never do. And I made a couple statements and tuned out. I don't do that online.
And I was actually surprised that you had, because it wasn't what I had expected. Because I was actually really curious to hear your thoughts, and then to see that you had replied was surprising to me.
Yeah, I never do that. But at any rate, here's my thing. Now, I don't have a problem with anybody doing whatever their conscience tells them. That's cool. That's what makes certain things great. For myself, I have been heavily involved in political discussion and political action since before I was old enough to vote. I used to go work the polls. I used to work the polls for certain candidates that I believed in. And over the years, for me, what has happened is what I think is just endemic. I think the system has failed. And for me, participation in the last couple elections, I've come to rethink the way I want to approach it. See, for me, by participating in that particular system means that I'm giving a tacit agreement that I am supporting the system and the structure as it exists. And I just don't want to do that anymore, at least right now. I'm not saying I don't know what the future will hold. I may change my mind.
Yeah.
But for me, because of the way that the system is structured, really only two parties ever really get represented.
Yeah, and as someone who voted today, that's all it was.
And that's a fact. I mean, like, in the past, I have actually had my vote not count towards the person that I wanted it to count because of stupid, laws, election laws that I used to be really involved with the Ron Paul campaign.
Yeah.
And from what I understood, I never got a 100% straight answer on this, but as far as I inquired, the year that McCain was chosen as the Republican nominee, Ron Paul had also run as a Republican that year. And, I'd be damned if I was going to vote for John McCain.
Right.
So I wrote in Ron Paul, and then later on came to find out that it's some kind of Pennsylvania law. It may not still be standing. This was years ago. I don't know. But at that time, the way it was explained to me was because of the fact that Ron Paul had run as a Republican, and because the Republicans had their own nominee, that my write-in vote for Ron Paul automatically would count for the Republican nominee. And I mean, there's just one example where the system has failed. If that's happening, the system has failed. And I'm not.
I had a similar, not to interrupt,
Go
but
for
it
it,
was
yeah.
in the same kind of wavelength there. The primaries before the last presidential election a couple years ago, I was a registered Democrat, and I went to cast my vote for Bernie Sanders.
Mhm.
And I went to cast my vote, and they said that you are no longer registered as a Democrat, so you're not eligible to vote in the primary.
Right.
Hillary wins the Democratic, and then when obviously whenever the presidential election occurs, I keep getting nothing but emails and texts from the Democratic Party saying, "Hey, we know you're a registered Democrat. Please consider voting for Hillary." And I'm just like, okay, now I'm a registered
Now
Democrat.
you're a registered Democrat.
But when I wanted to vote for Bernie Sanders, I was not.
Yeah.
And I can definitely agree with
So
you.
see, I see a lot of things like this. The voting structure. First of all, I don't necessarily. Okay, well, whatever. I don't know. I don't know where this is going to go. But just from the actual process of voting itself, by the time it even comes to the actual vote, I feel that there have been so many choices made before you ever even get a say.
Yeah.
That it's not representative of what I want to partake in.
It's not a true democracy.
Right. And that's what happens before I ever even get a chance to cast a ballot.
Right.
And then shit happens like what I just talked about with Ron Paul McCain and your Bernie Sanders story. So the actual process itself is so flawed. Secondly, I'll be 100% honest with you. I don't even trust the tallies. Like, I'm so disillusioned with the system that I don't really even trust the counts.
You see a ticker go up and down, and you just accept it.
Right. And I'm not the kind of guy that just accepts a lot of things.
Sure.
So for me, that's a problem. I have yet to see any real candidates have been offered to me from any viable, realistically going to achieve power parties that are not going to keep taxing, spending, and warring me to death. So, I mean, for me, it's a lack of good candidacy and a belief that the system is broken. So, for me to go participate in it means that at some point somebody's going to say, like, oh, we had record voter turnout or whatever, and they take that as an endorsement of the system because so many people have participated, right?
I definitely understand that mentality.
And so for me, that's my own personal choice. I look at it not as, and I think a lot of people just take it as apathy. Believe me, I'm not apathetic.
Well, because there's people that are apathetic,
right,
and that's the reason that they don't do it.
right. So, but believe me, from my own personal stance, it is very far from apathy. I actually look at it as an active form of protest.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm not. And so for somebody to come then back at me and say that I don't have the right to complain about things because I didn't participate.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care. I'm not going to say I'm going to get offended at that. I'm not. Honestly, I don't give a shit. Because I don't complain in public that much about it anyway.
Right.
But if we were going to debate that point, I would very strongly say that I would have the right to say whatever I want about it.
So can I ask you, what would you do? What would you do as far as, is this act of not voting, is that where it ends with you, or is there?
I would like to see the system break down to the point where we have to sort of rebuild it.
Yeah.
I don't see this. I don't see anybody fixing it from the inside, because the idea of the system right now just exists to sustain the system.
Yeah.
Status quo. Keep it going as it is. I've seen some people who, if anybody was going to do it, these are the people that were going to do it, and they failed.
Yeah.
I don't see it happening as long as the structure exists as it is. So yeah, I mean, I think we really have to take it to a point where it's dismantled and rebuilt. And I don't know what that means or what that would take. I'm not particularly. I have a lot of problems with the system as it exists, not just on a voting level, but on all governmental levels. And
I agree. I feel like just in general, casting your ballot is just a form of complacency. Like, you are saying that I agree with the system.
See, I feel that way when people bring up that point that, if you don't participate, you have no right to.
Yeah.
But to me, I'm not saying everybody. Everybody's an individual, and everybody has their own particular conscience, and everybody has their own particular inspiration and rules for what they want to, how they want to participate, and why they may participate. But I'm going to go ahead and say that for a lot of people, it is just complacency.
Yeah.
And they're going down and they're getting their little button, they're getting a little I voted sticker, and then they feel like they've done something. And for me, it's a steam valve that doesn't do anything to it's a steam valve that makes people think they've done something, and it doesn't do a goddamn thing. So in a way, all it does is keep the tension that should boil over from boiling over. Because now you're complacent. Oh, I got to participate. You know what I mean? And what are they offering us other than another sociopath from whatever party that's just, all they do is infringe on my damn freedom as it is.
Yeah. So
that's my particular thought. Like, no, I'm not going to participate in allowing some sociopath to deprive me of my freedom. Sorry.
Cool. It's, for me, it's one of those things where I'm fed up to the point where I'm wondering if my one vote can be a small enough drop in the ocean that could create a wave big enough to make a change.
Right.
And I'm interested in that experiment. I'm interested in seeing if my voice is big enough to make a change. And if it's not, then we need to address the issue.
I think we need to address that issue. One of the points that was brought up on that particular thread last night was, just think what would happen if everybody like you got together and voted. Well, it's not like I've never voted in my life. I've been voting my entire life.
Well, on the counterpoint, think about what would happen if everybody like them would stand up and not vote.
That's what I said. That's what I replied. I said, like, what would happen if nobody voted? What if we had a war and no one came? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
That's the particular thing that I think that would make a hell of a statement.
Al, wants to know what do we feel about term limits?
I guess that it's an issue, but
I think it's a good old boys club. If we're talking about the House and the Senate, I think it's just one of those things where it just needs an overhaul.
Mm.
These are archaic values and archaic rules that have been going on since the beginning of our government. They need to be reassessed, and there needs to be checks and balances. And as of right now, there aren't any.
I think it's an issue. The only problem where, God forbid, but you'll never see it. But in the opinion of somebody who actually does have merit, let's use about the only politician I've ever actually felt like happy to endorse in my life was Ron Paul, right? And he was in office for an ungodly time, and but it was because of merit, and that's one thing where I think the term limits could hurt somebody who actually has merit and is doing a good job. So I don't know. I don't think it would fix anything totally either way. It's a small part of the puzzle.
Yeah, admittedly, I am so far removed from anything political. Like, I just decided a long time ago that I would be much happier without even having to think about it.
Yeah.
And that is, and I admit there's some level of ignorance there because I just don't care.
Right.
But did I vote today? Yeah, sure. I went and voted.
Well,
Did I care about the button I pushed? No.
Right.
But in that being said, like, as far as, do I see term limits being a problem? Well, yeah. I don't even have to look at it from a political standpoint. I can just look at it from any kind of standpoint where somebody holds a position of power for too long.
Yeah.
It's documented history. It doesn't work.
For me, I've sort of adopted an attitude of I'm going to live my life the way I want to live it. And I'm obviously impacted by the environment that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
But if I feel that something is just, I will uphold that principle. And if I feel that something is unjust, I won't necessarily uphold that principle up until the point where I'm threatened. For example, taxation, income taxes, right? That taxation is theft. That's one particular thing. I do not believe in the efficacy or the right to impose income taxes, or one of my other particular big beefs is property tax. I'm not quite I don't quite understand how that's at all justified. But so here's my thing. Like, I avoid those things to the point that I can, but things like taxes, where they will literally, if you don't pay your taxes, they will come collect them from you. And if you refuse to collect them to a certain point, they will kill you. They will literally murder you over that. So obviously I'm going to pay my taxes because I'm forced to, right? But on just about any other level where I disagree or feel that a law is unjust, I don't feel the need to obey it, honor it, or whatever. So I try to not let it impact me as much as I can in my personal life.
Yeah, it's the same shoe that I'm on.
Obviously on some levels I'm going to be forced.
Yeah.
By the boot, by the boot heels. So I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
Honestly, it's one of those things where you've just grown up, you've lived your life doing these things without questioning them, and so it becomes a point where you're just like, at what point do you question everything? At what point do you just sweep everything under the rug and say, okay, I will pay my taxes this year. Okay, I will do this.
Yeah.
I will do that. I won't pay 6% on my milk, but I will pay 6% on my candy. It's one of those. It's one of those things where it's just
Right.
at what point do you stop being complacent and start
Right.
resisting?
Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. And that's why I wanted to make a discussion of it, because I
Yeah.
don't believe that your opinion and your protest is unjustifiable.
Right.
And that's what I wanted. And I'm positive we have listeners out there who are in the same boat. And I'm sure we have listeners that are in Jay's boat too, that just went out and casted a ballot so that they could take a selfie with their sticker today. So it's just one of those things.
I never wore stickers.
Did you take a selfie with your sticker
I did
today?
not.
Damn it. Yeah.
No, I did not.
Yeah.
I actually think I threw it away on the way back out.
And that's also like, I want to make the point once again. If you feel that I don't want to make a judgment for anybody else.
Yeah.
I'm not saying now in my own personal opinion, I don't think there's that much efficacy in it.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's my opinion, and that's okay. But I don't want to force my opinion on anybody else. If somebody else actually buys into that and they want to participate, like, far be it for me to say don't. I'm also not criticizing anybody else for having a different opinion.
Yeah.
I have my own opinion, but yeah, I mean, cock off and be your own person.
Mhm.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Soapbox.
And I'd like
Down.
to point out, everybody, that we just had a political conversation with guns in the room and nobody died.
And whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's all toast each
Up
other.
next, we're going to talk about church. And watch the bullets fly.
I don't think in this room.
Yeah, I was going to say, not from this crowd. So let's move on to discussion topic number 2, which is the main point of the evening, I suppose.
Yeah.
Mikey said this last week. You know what? Mikey, why don't you explain what happens every day with you and your group of friends?
Yeah. So we
This
like
is
I said,
awesome.
it's a group text with some of my friends who I've been friends with since elementary school, and we every day, one person in the group thread, there's 5 of us, will give a list topic, and it can be a top 3, top 10, top 5, whatever, list of anything: ice cream flavors, favorite meals, funniest moment in your life,
What was
video
today's?
games. Today's was handheld games. So
Oh, man.
yeah,
Next week's
Like
topic.
ColecoVision football.
could be anything. Yeah, literally anything. So it was
You remember
cell
that?
phone games,
Yeah, I had it.
any or Game Boy,
Oh
Game Boy
yeah,
Advance,
I'm old.
anything.
Whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So that was today's. But we had one a few days. I guess it's been over a week now. But we did top Brian Fresh, Whisketeer Brian Fresh suggested top 7 concept albums. So and we're all really big into music in that thread, and obviously everybody in this room the same, big into music. So Jay heard that, Jason heard that, ears perked up and said,
Boop.
"Yeah,
Let's do that.
I would like to discuss my top favorite concept albums." And
Yeah.
so I didn't divulge my whole list. So we got our top 10 concept albums here, and we've got I think we have at least one listener's list as well. But if you're
Yes, we
listening
do
at
have
home and
one.
you've got your list, feel free to send them in, and we'd like to take a look at them. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
How do you guys want to do it? Do you want to do one at a time all the way to 10, or do you want to do each person tell their whole list?
I think we should do it one at a time.
Yeah.
All the way to 10. Although I think Jay and I are on the same pages. I do not want to rank. This is in no ranked order.
Okay.
I rank mine, but I don't have to follow it. I just wanted to, if I were to write them down, I'm going to go in from 10 to 1. But
I literally wrote them down in the order that I thought of them.
Sure. That's fine. I mean, I ranked mine, but we don't have to go by rank.
Okay.
So why don't you start us off, Jason?
In a way, some of mine are somewhat, actually, now that I look at them, not totally. There's some bit of, how do I want to, chronological order here a bit, but
Now, can I ask before you start, did you guys follow any rules for yourself as far as you don't
What's
use
a
the same
concept
artist?
album?
Well, yeah,
no.
and that's a good point. We should discuss that for the listeners.
Yeah, the only thing that I made sure I stood by was that I listened to these albums. You said, "What is your top 10?"
yeah.
And these are my top 10.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
like and I've seen a bunch of different lists from a few people that contain the same albums, and I'm like, I get that, but I didn't listen to that. I didn't grow up in that time, so I mean, not to say that I haven't heard them.
Yeah,
but that wasn't me, so I didn't pick obvious choices.
that's an important question in regards to my list because there are other concept albums that I certainly listen to as much as some of these and enjoy as much of these, but I did make an effort to try to present 10 that weren't completely obvious. Like I tried to dig a little deeper. So there are other ones that could be on here that I love and listen to, but yeah, I just kind of wanted to maybe find a few that were off the beaten path a little bit. And another thing is though that is it, what he said was another thing. I mean, I wasn't going to pick an album just because it's a concept album. Like I have to have some personal experience with these with everything on my list.
Now, before you start your list, do you want to just let everybody at home kind of give them an idea of the concept of a concept album?
Okay, that's quite a subjective thing, and for me, it's doesn't have to be one thing. I mean, there are various categories that would place something in the concept album category. I think the most common conception is probably an album that has a usually storyline development through the lyrics of a plot and storyline development. Although for other purposes, I could see certain things. You know, as long as there's some sort of continuity that conceptually ties the content together, I'm okay with calling it a concept album. Doesn't have to be the same reason for every album.
Sure.
You know,
yeah,
I'm okay with that.
I'm on board with that.
All right. So my number one was probably the first concept album that I remember being exposed to as a kid. And it's funny because it's totally a concept record. I don't know how many people actually think of it as a concept record. But for me, it's a Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles. You know, the story there being that they're going to become another band. And, you know, this is the songs and sort of the stories and experiences that they're having as they are another band now. They're masquerading as another band. So
Sgt. Pepper's
Lonely
Hearts Club.
Right. So, you know, for me, that concept, you know, that's a concept record to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. It was just one of the first concept albums I was exposed to and completely fell in love with it and love it to this day.
You browsed through that because Whisketeer Rick Wertz brought in the booklet from the vinyl.
Right.
Because I had mentioned that I was interested in it, and he brought it so I could read it, and it was. Yeah, if you want to argue that that's a concept album, just read that.
Right, it's a concept album. Yeah, and it was pretty groundbreaking. There were concept albums before that,
sure,
but you know, I think as far as exposing popular culture to the idea of a concept album, it probably went a long way.
Sure,
you know. So that was just like I said. I'm not calling it my number one. I'm not calling it my number 10. It was just on the list.
Sure.
So,
cool.
Yeah, I did. I'll go next, I guess. I did put mine in a ranking list. I originally didn't, but I just jotted it down real quick. It wasn't that hard to figure out. I'm going to start with my number 10. And the only reason that this is a number 10 is because on a wider scale, outside of our area, no one's going to know what this is. I went with a local band that as a young musician growing up and being able to see some of the talent that was in this area at the time, this particular band stuck out. They befriended us, and it was very, very cool to be under the wing of a band that had that much talent in one room, and let alone being a young bass player looking up to a man who I hold in a very high regard as far as bass playing goes. So my number 10 choice, and only because it's a local band that no one really knows about, is a defunct band now, which is called The Grim, and the album was Resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the story of a man who he gets into an argument with his wife or significant other, I do believe, goes to a liquor store to get some some booze, ends up getting shot in the middle of a robbery, and it's him going through the different stages of do I stay, do I go, and being trapped to the physical plane still, trying to figure out if he should move on to the next. It was really good. Like I talked to those guys a lot about it, and they said like it literally bankrupted them because they went all out.
It's all good concept albums.
Yeah, they went all out for that record, and it's one of my favorites to this day. I still listen to it all the time. So that's a big one for me. That was actually one of those like I had no thought about. Like concept records, I went, oh, the Grim. Yeah, pretty much. So, Mikey.
Cool. So, again, yeah, mine isn't a 10-to-1 order, but they could easily swap them out.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So my number 10, I'm going to go with, if you are familiar with home movies, if you're familiar with Metalocalypse, you are familiar with Brendan Small.
Mm-hmm.
Brendan Small is, obviously, he created some pretty awesome entertainment.
He sure did.
But he also is a really accomplished musician.
He sure is.
He can shred. I mean, he did all the music for Metalocalypse.
He's in Metalocalypse, yeah.
But he decided that after Metalocalypse ended, he wanted to create a concept album. And it's actually a multi-part concept album. He's going to release the next part. I don't know if it's out yet, but it's coming out. Galacticon. If you're a fan of Metalocalypse and you haven't listened to Galacticon, you're doing yourself a great disservice. If you're a fan of metal music and you haven't listened to Galacticon, then you're doing a great disservice by not listening to it. But it's kind of like a cyberpunk metal,
right?
Just epic, and it's really fucking good.
Are you going to publish these? You should.
I can.
Because that way I'm going to go back and listen to everybody else's concept album list.
Sure.
That's going to be good.
Just make sure I get a copy of it the time we go.
All right.
Jay, do you want to do number 9?
Yeah.
Number 9?
This is actually this was a shocker for me because it literally
you become naked.
It just came out, and I've been so taken with it that I had to put it. I mean, there was a question mark spot on my list for my last pick, and I was fighting this choice, and I finally went, you know what, I'm not going to fight it anymore.
Don't fight it anymore.
It is the brand new release from Coheed and Cambria. It is the Vaxxus story, Act 1, The Unheavenly Creatures. And I made a post about it last night on Facebook. Like after a few listens, the album is really almost flawless. It is fantastic, and my only complaint about it is it's long, which isn't a bad thing. It was 78 minutes long.
I love that.
Yeah, and it's one of those like you hit about track 9, and you're like, I can feel the resolution. You're like, nope, you've got 9 more tracks to go, bud.
Oh, I love that.
And not that long is bad. It's not, but it's one
That's
of
what she said.
Yeah, I heard that.
It's one of those. I like to have resolution, and that's one of those albums. Unless you know that you're going to be doing nothing for the next 78 minutes.
Right.
I hate walking away from something like that being unfinished. So that's my only gripe.
You like them like a soup can, short and thick.
No, not necessarily.
I just don't want to say that.
But no, that's my my top 10 pick, or my number 9 pick is the new Coheed record.
Want me to go next?
We'll go around.
Oh, we're going around the room.
We'll round the horn.
Like a Fish album.
I heard
We're
that.
gonna bounce around the room.
So my number 9 is, I mean, they have to be on your list, I guess. Dream Theater, and I'm not a huge Dream Theater fan, but when it comes to concept albums, they do it better than most. I went with Metropolis Part 2 because I actually love that album. That's the only Dream Theater album, I should put it this way. That's the only Dream Theater album that I can sit through beginning to end and tolerate Labrie, because he is the worst part of that band.
Yeah,
hands
absolutely
down.
is the worst part.
He always was.
But Hell's Kitchen, I believe, is on that one. But correct me if I'm wrong. But it's full of like really interesting melodies and really interesting ups and downs and storytelling within the songs. Even if you don't like his voice, you get a story from just the instruments, which I think is really important in a concept album. So I originally had a top 7 list. I don't remember if I mentioned that, but Brian did a top 7.
Yeah.
So I had to add a couple more to the end. And in honor of Brian, that's his favorite band is Dream Theater, I tacked them on to the end of my list.
Now here's a question. You asked this once before on a different topic. Was that your first Dream Theater record?
It may have been.
Because the only one that I can stand front to back is Train of Thought.
The first one you
Because
listened
that
to.
was the first one I listened to.
What's the Change of Seasons? I believe is that one of them? That may have been my first.
I don't like any Dream
Dream
Theater
Theater
albums.
didn't make my list.
Yeah. If I was going to rank these, this would definitely be my number 10.
Okay.
I had to put, there's really three records that I could have chosen to represent this. But this was just something that, like, I don't know, around the time when I was starting to enter high school or so, I listened to these records and as it went on, the three of them. And I don't particularly like them today, but there was a time when I did listen to a lot of these records, and they helped me understand in a way just kind of what you can do with a concept record. So for me, they're important in that regard. And like I said, there's 3 or 4 albums I could have chosen here in a series, but the one I went with was the first one. That's King Diamond's Abigail, which sort of tells the story of a family that moves into this house and turns out to be haunted. And, the family ghost appears to them, and they're going to have a illegitimate kid. And the spirit of Abigail is going to be reborn in the kid, and blah, blah, blah. And this actually plays itself out over like 3 records. And King Diamond is like very hard for me to listen. Like, I don't like King Diamond's crazy ass vocals that much. But after you like get into that flow, but there's some amazing playing on those records. And like I said, they just sort of hit me at a time when I think they've probably influenced me as far as conceptualizing what you can do with a concept album. So yeah, I'd have to put the King's Abigail on there.
It's interesting.
Really?
So for my number 8, I went with a band that I listened to a lot in my, I guess I would say, like, alternative rock stage of my life. The band is Cursive. The album's The Ugly Organ, alternative band with a cello. So
Love that.
Where do you go? Although that was their last album with their cellists, as far as I know, unless they brought her back. But that album kind of, it's a lot of stories intermixed in there. Probably my first real interaction with a concept album as far as albums that I was experiencing myself.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, my parents had listened to albums that I had later found out were concept albums, which we may or may not see on the list. But this was one of those ones where you discover it on your own and you're just like, oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I strongly recommend that one also. It's a really groovy album.
It's awesome.
What about you? Number 8.
Oh, it's my next. We're going around the room. It's the next one.
You're figuring it out.
This one was on my list, and then it was off my list, and then it was on my list, and then it was off my list.
Was it your Kiss?
No.
It's on my list.
Mm-hmm. The best things in life. No, first of all, I tried to avoid albums. There were a couple albums that I knew were going to make your list, and that they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried to not have too much overlap with what I figured you guys would have. But I almost, at the end of the day, would have like punched myself if I didn't put Rush 2112 down on favorite concept albums, because it's just badass. And it introduces so many people to the idea. I don't even care if it's half the album. I mean,
yeah.
That's why I didn't.
That's the only thing that, like, it has made my list, and that was the only one I thought, like, maybe I shouldn't put on.
I know, but then I thought, how can I not?
Because it wasn't a full concept album.
Right.
It was only half a side one of a concept.
Right, but
that one concept is massive.
Yeah, I mean, it's boom. It's the mother of all concept albums. It's not, but it is.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you're going to make a concept album, at some point somebody's going to compare it to 2112. You know, so it's almost like a given. You know,
it's like the rock and roll elephant in the room.
Right, exactly.
We have a concept record, and it just comes
right.
in the peripheral. Like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Your concept record. So yeah, I mean, I debated. I had it on. I had it off. Whatever. Finally, at the end of the day, I said, "You're struggling too hard with this. If you're going to fight this hard with it, just put it on." So I put it on.
So we're on number 8.
We are.
This is another newer one for me. It's not quite as new as the Coheed record that just came out. But over the last few months, Mikey introduced me to a band, which I didn't know was going to have that huge of an effect on me. But I love them to death now. It's called The Deer Hunter. And I saved from, this is how complex this band is. My choice for number 8 was The Color Spectrum. And it's hard to say that it's not a concept album, but it is totally a concept album because he wrote songs according to the color spectrum. So the songs might not have...
That's a concept album. I'm sorry.
Might not have cohesive continuity.
No,
but as far as like I'd be walking in and out of the room and I'd go, Mikey, yellow.
Yeah.
And he'd look it up and he'd go, yep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, got it.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, and he's been writing concept albums since he was in Receiving End of Sirens. He's just been, that's what he does. He writes a story, and even if the concept is born in the conceptualization of the album, if there's no cohesiveness within the songs, it doesn't have to tell a story as long as the concept is there in the writing.
When we first talked about it, I mean, that's in there,
and that's exactly how Casey writes.
But the depth of this guy. He wrote Act 1. He wrote Act 2. He wrote Act 3. He got bored and wrote The Color Spectrum in between Act 4 and 5.
Right.
You know, and this is a huge record. There's like, how many songs are on it in total?
Well, there's 7. I believe there's 7 different colors, and then there's about 4 or 5 each color.
So you're looking at about anywhere between 35 and 40 songs on record.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense. So, definitely, like, I even turned my sister on to The Deer Hunter, and she said it's fantastic. It's almost like this guy listened to, which I'm not sure who came first, whether it was Coheed or The Deer Hunter, but she said it's kind of like this band and this band together, and he said, okay, I'm going to do what you guys do, but I'm going to do it with all these ragtag instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And he does it very, very well. It's incredible. So that was my number 8.
I've heard it on around the store on more than one occasion.
36,
really,
36 is
I really liked it.
So it's a monstrous feat to have that much talent, that much writing talent. I mean, to not run out of material and it not be boring. Like, it's not. It's fantastic. Check it out.
Number 7. That's how we're doing it. You need to understand. You started, Jay, me. No, you again, Jay, me.
Okay.
Just follow my lead.
I'm following.
Just watch my hips.
No, I was afraid. I almost didn't include this because I thought it might overlap. I tried to not overlap everybody's list if I could help it. And I was afraid this one might overlap, but I'm happy actually. I picked Opeth's Still Life.
That's the common one.
And you know, I get it. But I just really like it.
I saw you peek over at mine and noticed that it wasn't on there.
I was happy because it's just a badass.
It was really close. In fact, it was a coin toss.
It's a really badass record.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a concept album. So, you know, so I'm going with it, you know.
Of course.
And, I don't know. It's just, it's funny because conceptually it holds its weight. But for me, I like it a little more just because it's a really badass album. Yeah. Like some concept records, I like them just because of the concept.
Yeah.
That record I like just because it's a really badass record. I can't say I sit down and like listen to the lyrics and follow the story. I just dig the shit out of that record.
So, and that's the thing for me. A lot of these concept albums, you kind of have to listen to front to back. Like Coheed, you really. Deer Hunter, spoiler, are going to show up on my list. It's really hard for you to jump in the middle of that album.
Mm-hmm.
But with Still Life, you could grab a song from that album and it's going to knock your socks off. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
James, your number 7.
Number 7, which again for me was a no-brainer. As far as a band that has had concepts and several concepts within their history, my number 7 pick is the final. At this point, the final work of the Canadian monster that was Rush, which was their Clockwork Angels
Clockwork
album.
Angels.
Musically, it was fantastic. There wasn't like a book that accompanied it, but it wasn't wrote by them. It was wrote by someone who was close to the band. And it was a little cheesy at some point. Like the guy wanted to work in like every Rush reference that he could make. But the story itself was really, really good. And it was probably, I thought like, oh, this is going to be, it's just a great record.
It is.
And for them to go out on that, if that's truly what they are doing, that you couldn't have put like a finer stamp on the envelope. So Clockwork Angels, number 7.
Nice. My number 7 is from David Bowie, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars.
That was on my list and then off my list.
Really?
Yes.
You want to explain why it came off?
First of all, I enjoy the record. I've listened to it quite a bit in my life. I figured somebody would have it, so it would be represented. And it's a great record. I've enjoyed it immensely. It's not as personal to me as some of the other ones. And I knew somebody would have it.
It's not for me. So I love it. Obviously, it's on my list. But it's one of those ones for me that I really dig the concept. And doing a little more research on my list, it was one of those things. It was surprising for me to find out that it wasn't intended to be a concept.
It was
album.
not intended to be a concept album. However, the whole thing holds a lot of conceptual weight.
Yeah. And then whenever you listen to it after it's completed, you're like, this is obviously.
But Bowie was one of those guys that when he thought his intellect was such that he thought big. So when he conceived of the idea for this record, of course it made sense because he conceived of all of that idea at one time. So, I think a lot of Bowie records are actually kind of concept albums.
Yeah. Oh.
Speak of the man. And but I like I said, I'm with you, dude. It was on here. It's just not on here now because it's not as personal to me as some of the others.
Yeah.
And I figured somebody would have it.
You were right.
I figured you would have it. Actually.
That was me.
I didn't think Jay was going to have that, right?
Yeah.
No.
All right, Jay, you're up on your number 6, bud.
Number 6 for me was my introduction to this band. And it kind of really made me fall in love with them. To go backwards was a little bit of a culture shock because you come in on that note where they already are.
I like trying to guess your bands.
Yeah?
Like, I have a feeling I know this one.
I know this one.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier today.
I know this one.
And it kind of almost didn't make my list because we said album, and this is an EP.
Oh, so I'm wrong.
So it's not as long as it could have been. It could have been a lot longer. It'd have been amazing, but I put it on there anyway because as far as a concept goes, what a concept it was. But number 6 for me is the Zombie EP from The Devil Wears Prada.
I wasn't even close. I wasn't close with my guess in my head for Jay.
Are you able to guess my bands?
I'm trying.
Okay.
As you start off, I'm like,
okay.
Yeah, I know this one. I know this one. I'm sure the one I was thinking for this one is going to be on your list, though.
All right.
And I'll be shocked.
I'm going to tell you what. The one you were thinking of for that one is on his list.
Okay.
Because I know what you were thinking of for that one, and it is on his list.
Nice.
I
don't know.
I know it is. I'll be shocked if it isn't.
Okay.
Like, I think both you and I, if we get to 10 and it's not on the list, are going to go,
What?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm up on my number 7. No,
6.
So, Deer Hunter, welcome back.
Welcome back.
You've been gone for a little bit. I did not go with the color spectrum, although I set myself a rule to not use the same band twice. So if I had, they may have made the list.
See, it's good to know what our internal rules were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any band on here twice. I didn't want to do that.
I do, unfortunately.
Yeah, I didn't want to.
Well, I don't want to say unfortunately.
That's not unfortunate. That's just where you were rolling.
Yep, I've got 2 repeats.
Right.
I went with Act 2 which was,
Oh yeah.
in my opinion, their finest album, front to back, amazing. Now that is one of those ones that we talked about a few minutes ago, where it's really difficult. Not that I won't do it, not that I haven't done putting myself in just a random song, but if I start that album, I will finish that album.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's so strong, beginning to end, and that was one of the albums where he wrote every piece of music for it. He wrote every instrument. He didn't record it on that one like he did with Act One, but he still had everything in mind as far as every individual instrument on the conception of the album. And it's funny, that guy, he's just got the brain of a genius when it comes to music.
There's some records you just can't start in the middle.
Right.
You know, I mean,
And as far as like technical prowess that this guy has, like we've watched enough live shows of the Deer Hunter at work. He is vocally flawless.
right.
Really,
He always sounds the exact same. Like you're always getting the CD best.
He'll hit his lows, he'll hit his highs. And it's funny, speaking of watching him live, we were watching a video, and Jay's like, "What's that guitar?" Because, I mean, we work at a music store, so it'd be nice
Yeah.
to know what kind of guitar he plays. We look it up. He builds his own guitars also.
Oh!
So when he's not busy writing every instrument in the next album, he's also
And writing
building his own guitar.
40-track albums.
Yeah.
In between other 40-track albums, yeah.
So that's my number 6. What do you got, Chase?
My next one, it could have literally been any album from this band, because pretty much every album they've ever done is a concept album.
I got my guess.
They created their own little world, and it's sort of like it's a fantasy kind of world.
Still got my guess.
You still hitting me?
Yeah.
I'll be happy if you even just get the band and don't get the album. And every album is about this world. So every song is set in a fantasy setting. Lashir is the name of the world, I believe, how you would pronounce it. And the band is Immortal.
Not where I was going.
And the one I picked, could have picked any Immortal record, really, is but the one I picked is just the one that I had listened to the most recently, and that was At the Heart of Winter. So yeah, that's, I mean, like I said, it's pretty much every Immortal album's, and it does strain that line, because there might not be continuity about what's going on story wise, but I mean, like every album is set in that world, so to me that's a concept album, you know, in a way.
Yeah. Cool. So my number 5 is welcoming back.
Welcome back.
Another artist that was just on the list, Opeth. Like I was talking to Jason, there's 2 albums when you think of Opeth that are concept albums: Still Life and My Arms Your Hearse. So I went with My Arms Your Hearse.
I'm glad we have both of them on.
Yeah. And strictly the only reason that this made my list over Still Life is because it has one of my top favorite Opeth songs, When, which I think that song is amazing,
Right.
flawless.
Which was his pick last week for
Yeah.
the playlist.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you're following that,
Yep.
which you should.
Right.
So after you're done listening to Still Life, listen to My Arms Your Hearse.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, I have. Yeah, it's
2
great.
albums that are just flawless, in my opinion.
What band do you always think Opeth is?
OTEP.
OTEP. That's it. Yeah. Who amazingly didn't make my
Yeah,
list.
they didn't make mine.
Spoiler alert, number
Spoilers.
1 through 4 on my list.
OTEP. Oh, are we back to me?
Number 5.
Number 5 for me is an album that I have definitely picked as my what I was listening to that week. And I was very happy to include it on this list. It's Bertsam's Skiptar,
Mm-hmm.
which deals with well, I mean, the Volsupa and Nordic mythology. It's the whole thing is not even mythology so much as hard to explain the concept, but it deals with sort of pivotal writings that have been passed down through folklore, and it's kind of cool because he really, I mean, love or hate Varg Vikernes. I'm not sure I know which way I stand on that or not, but love the man as a musician. But it's super well done. It's super well done. In my opinion, it's the best Bertram album there is. And there's a lot of people who would disagree with me on that, but oh well. Yeah, I mean, and I have the whole album's in Norwegian, so I mean it's hard to follow along exactly what's being said, but I mean just stellar album, one of my favorites of all time. So
Cool.
sorry I didn't talk long enough. You sat back there and we're just getting comfortable.
I ruined myself at work today. It's great.
All right, game.
On that, yeah. To me,
You're number 5.
number 5. Which this choice also comes long time ago from the lovely man beside me, Michael Cavino. He said, "So what do you think about this record?" I said, "I love it." He goes, "You ready for the next part?" I said,
no.
"Yeah, what?" And he goes, "It's a concept." And I went, "What? Oh no." And I just hook, line, sinker dived in. And it's not that album in particular.
Oh,
But that's how I was introduced to this band was from Mikey. And the my most favorite album from again reoccurring for me, Coheed and Cambria, was the In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3 record. It's just that's the one that's got the most rotation for me, album wise. I could have picked. I could a number. No, they only have 9 albums, and 8 of those.
oh, is that it? They only have 9
Yeah,
albums.
and 8 of those albums pertain to the concept
Yeah.
in some form or another. I could have easily just went Coheed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know,
Yeah.
but I didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3 is just that's where they really came into their own as far as like pivotal. You could tell they weren't just kids anymore. They were writing some really big themes, and it's when that opening riff starts with the opening track of